So we're on section 18.4, principal parts. I've been trying to think what to do with this section because I'm not sure it's actually going to be very useful to you. As I think about what you're going to do with Greek in the future, as I think about how I use principal parts, Duff is showing you how to figure out what a verb is when you don't immediately recognize it, or how to connect principal parts to the forms that you find in the Bible. Now, I already copied for you the whole principal parts from Rodney Decker's Greek, so you do have access to the principal parts if you need them. I recommend that you read this section and that you look at the practice on page 18.4. I'll tell you in a minute what I'd like you to do with it. The principal parts, I think, are especially helpful if you're trying to go from English to Greek, because then if you want a future stem, if you want an aorist stem or whatever, you know what stem you're going to need to build on, and hopefully you know your endings really well, and you can add the endings and you're all set. The problem with going backwards, and especially the problem with the examples in the practice, and even maybe the example in Mark 4:20 at the top of page 209, is that as you've seen, some of these verbs have future stems, aorist stems, perfect stems that look nothing like the present stem. And we can make guesses. We can try to imagine what it might look like without an augment, or various other guesses. And if it's not too different, we can make relatively good guesses and look it up. So if you come across ebalon, it's not hard to get to ballot from ebalon. But if you look at number one in the practice, erthesan, I'm not sure how easy it would be to get to airo from erthesan. And certainly in the second sentence, aile famen, getting to lambano from aile famen is going to be practically impossible unless you have a lexicon where you can look up aile and it will point you to lambano. I didn't check to see if this one does that. Let's just see that quickly. No, I don't see where it does that here. So that's not going to be very helpful. And honestly, several of you have already started using not just the Greek word study tool that I gave you, but there are other Greek word study tools on the internet where you can type in a form and it parses it right away. So I'm not sure that practicing with these principal parts the way Duff wants you to is actually going to be very helpful for you for the future. However, what I would like you to do is use whatever tool you're already using. Um, and I don't remember the one that some of you are using that I don't know very much about. The thing that I'm concerned about is that some of them are anybody can make changes to them, and those can be very helpful. But if it's open source, it also means that anybody can come in and sort of mess with it. So you might want to always double check what you're finding when you look that up. You're free to use the Perseus Greek word study tool that I use, or whatever other tools you have at your disposal. And using those, try translating the sentences in practice 18.4. That way, and some of these words you might recognize, like ekusa is not difficult to recognize, and that one you should know. And I said this a long time ago, it's like letting elementary school kids use a calculator. If you let them use a calculator from the very beginning, they're going to be punching in 2 plus 2. And it actually takes longer to punch in 2 plus 2 equals than it does to just know that it's 4. You guys now know that ekusa is akuo. And it's going to save you a lot of time when you know that, because that just knowing ekusa akuo is much quicker than looking up, what is ekusa, and trying to figure it out. However, forms like erthesan, unless you become a scholar, and even me as a scholar, I don't necessarily know them all, um, and are constantly immersed in Greek, and then it would might be worth memorizing principal parts. Otherwise, you're going to be using shortcuts, and we might as well just recognize that you are. So when you translate practice 18.4, I would invite you to use whatever tools you prefer, but go ahead and do the exercise. Practice it on your own. Come up with your translations before you check them in Duff. So I'm not going to teach you anything more about these principal parts. Read it for yourself and make sure you know how to get translations when you come across verbs that you just don't recognize, or that just have really difficult principal parts where each different part of the principal part, each different part looks very different from the others. That's it. That's it for that section.